If Bryce Eldridge isn't ready, who will be the DH to kick off the 2026 season for your Giants? Let's talk about it right here on Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, y'all? I'm Alan Salz. Welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, thanks to you, the #1 sports podcast network. On the show, we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that combines passion, analytics with the eye test, and a little bit of fun. I'm from the Bay Area, but I live in Sacramento now, and I host a show on Sacktown Sports 1140, as well as emceeing Sacramento Rivercats games. All in all, I'm lucky enough to cover a team I've been a fan of all my life. Today, we are discussing who is going to be the DH or DHs while Bryce Eldridge is in AAA, if he does end up starting out the season in AAA. Carson Whisenhunt is hot. What does that mean for the Giants and their bullpen and possibly their starting rotation? And last but not least, what do you want to see this spring during spring training? We'll talk about what I want to see. And of course, you can hop in the comments and be a part of the conversation. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Happy Friday to everyone, or if you're listening or watching on the weekend, happy Saturday or Sunday as we get you going. And we've made it, people. We've made it. There is baseball happening today. There is baseball happening right now. Major League Baseball, not college baseball. You know I love college baseball, but Major League Baseball happening today, right now. The Giants get started tomorrow. So that's very exciting. If you are listening to this or watching this tomorrow on Saturday, you could be doing that while the game is going on. So very exciting stuff. Hayden Birdsong going to be on the bump to kick things off for the Gigantes. And, you know, this is the time of year where there is going to be some overreacting. We talked about Bo Davidson hitting that ball 101 exit velo. Well, Luis Arias was the second baseman. He got eaten up pretty good. Okay, so a lot of people were joking about that. On the flip side of it, Bryce Eldridge has a clip going around where he is whiffing on a pitch, as he does fairly often. And a lot of people are saying, man, oh man, what's going to happen if Bryce Eldridge doesn't figure it out and he has to start out the season in AAA? Well, I would say that that's not the worst thing in the world. You know, the Giants have been accused in some circles of rushing their guys to the big leagues and trying to get that savior and get them across the finish line, or at least rushing them through the minor leagues. And they can't afford to do that with Bryce Eldridge. So I don't necessarily mind if he starts out in AAA. We just want him to be in the best position possible to succeed. And when he is ready, we want him to definitely be that guy that we thought we were going to see with some of the saviors of the past. So I don't really have an issue with slowing down the process with Bryce Eldridge. I know last season I was definitely on the train to bring him up, but that was a different situation. And the Giants were basically fighting for a playoff spot, and their offense was trash. So they kind of needed some help anywhere they could get it. But now that we've refreshed it, you bring in a guy like Luis Arias, you bring in a guy like Harrison Bader. Everyone says Harrison Bader is not going to hit the way he hit last season, but you're also starting off the season with Rafi Devers, which you did not have last season. So it's a completely different setup to start Bryce Eldridge and I guess rush him to that if it feels like you're doing that, versus last season where you definitely needed some of that offense and you were hoping that you could get it. So I don't have a problem with Bryce Eldridge starting out in AAA. What I also want to put on the flip side of it is who would be the DH if Bryce Eldridge does start in AAA. And the Giants, of course, have a couple options. So we're going to do it this way because we have this from Andrew Baggerly, and this is essentially his first swing, no pun intended, at the Giants roster projection. So let's go through the Giants roster projection and see if we can figure out who the DH could be. So funny enough, when Baggerly breaks down his projection, his projected lineup has Jerar Encarnacion. He doesn't even have Bryce Eldridge. And I don't think that's necessarily because the Giants feel higher about Encarnacion than Bryce Eldridge or any of the other guys. But what's the common denominator? Not to put you in class, because Lord knows I don't want to do that. But what's the common denominator there? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They're all lefties. They're all lefties. Bryce Eldridge, Rafi Devers, Grant McCray, Drew Gilbert, all lefties. And the Giants, and then they bring in Luis Arias, also a lefty. Okay, they don't have a lot of pop and power and sustainability from the right side. So Jerar Encarnacion, he definitely fills that description. Okay, I don't believe I mentioned Luis Matos, because Luis Matos obviously is a righty hitter, but you're looking for power. You're looking for power in those spots. So you could go Luis Matos there, but I think in their mind, they figure, well, if we're going to go with a righty and we're not necessarily sure where the hitting tool is at, let's go with somebody that can run into a ball that might get hit to Pluto. And that's Jerar Encarnacion. That is not as much Luis Matos. So that is why Baggerly is going in that direction. Honestly, that's not something that I initially thought of. My first thought was Casey Schmidt, to be completely clear with you. So my first thought was Casey Schmidt, but I do like this shout for Jerar Encarnacion. He hasn't really been able to stay healthy, at least not last season. If he's just DHing, maybe that helps that situation. From the other options that are out there, Tyler Fitzgerald, Parks Harbor, Buddy Kennedy, some of the names that he's just throwing around, or excuse me, those were next up. He's got Willie Adames, Matt Chapman, Casey Schmidt, Christian Koss. So Casey Schmidt and Christian Koss, definitely wouldn't be Christian Koss. It's no disrespect to him. Just when you're looking at a DH, it just wouldn't be Christian Koss unless he's just red hot. So I'm looking at Casey Schmidt. As far as the outfielders are concerned, yeah, Will Brennan. Okay, we mentioned Luis Matos, and he actually has, for this setup, Baggerly does, he's got Elliot Ramos, Jung-Hoo Lee, Harrison Bader, Encarnacion, and Drew Gilbert as far as the 5 outfielders. For next up, he has Luis Matos, Grant McCray, and Will Brennan. So again, he is somebody very, very plugged in, and almost too plugged in at some points, but he's got Encarnacion as one of those 5 outfielders. And I think that is something that maybe a lot of us weren't thinking about in that same way, but someone that the Giants could definitely use and could definitely want to pop from that right side, because the Giants don't really have that. So I think that is a great kind of thought process. And honestly, not necessarily only when Bryce Eldridge is in AAA, because you need that righty bat. The Giants, with the combination of Luis Arias and obviously Rafi Devers and Bryce Eldridge, you're kind of rotating 3 lefty bats. So it's a bit harder to do that. If Encarnacion can figure things out, and to a lesser degree, Luis Matos, we know he's up against it with the option situation, but they need some righty bats to be able to plug in there and do some damage. Now, of course, you bring in, like I already mentioned, you bring in a Harrison Bader who hits from the right side, but that's not the DH position, right? That's already going to be in the field, and that's the last thing that Harrison Bader is going to do. He's there to help your defense. So I'm looking at Casey Schmidt or Encarnacion. I think the bottom line is, if it's not Bryce Eldridge, depending on who's on the bump, but if it's not Bryce Eldridge, you're probably looking at a righty to kind of even those things out. So for that projection, he has, from start to finish, Andrew Baggerly has Luis Arias leading off, Willie Adames hitting 2, Rafi Devers hitting 3. So lefty, righty, lefty. Matt Chapman hitting 4. Obviously, he's a righty. Harrison Bader hitting 5. Obviously, he's a righty. Then Elliot Ramos hitting 6. He's another righty. Patrick Bailey, the switch hitter. Encarnacion as a righty, and Jung-Hoo Lee as that lefty. So not, I guess, as much back and forth as you typically see. Obviously, Baggerly is not the manager, but I do feel as if we shouldn't be surprised if Tony Vitello doesn't necessarily lean on the traditional new age, that's kind of an oxymoron, of lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Tony Vitello do a lot of different things that we haven't typically seen other managers do. So just as far as I'm concerned, looking at this lineup, I don't necessarily mind it. We can argue back and forth on Adames 2 and Devers 3. I think Adames maybe strikes out too much to hit 2, to be to be frank with you, I'd probably move Devers back to 2. I don't love Chapman at 4 either. I actually like Adames at 4. I don't necessarily like Matt Chapman at 3, but I might like him more at 3 than Willie Adames. So I might have Luis Arias, Devers, Chapman 3, Adames 4, Bader 5. And then after that, I might even flip Bader, to be honest. I might even flip Bader and Elliot Ramos. So a lot of different ways to do the Rubik's Cube, and a lot of us are going to have different thoughts on it. But I don't think Bagley is super far off here to kind of kick things off to start the 2026 season. Let's talk about Carson Whisenhunt, who's starting out hot in the 2026 season. He's throwing how fast and throwing what pitch? Let's talk about it on the other side. More Locked On Giants coming up. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Baseball is back, and you can lock in by joining the Everydayer Club, which gets you ad-free episodes and access to our group chat on Discord. For the next week or so, you can use code SPRING for a free month. Go to LockedOnSFGiants@Supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes. As I mentioned in the first segment, there are going to be a lot of big storylines heading into 2026, and some things will be overblown. That's fair enough, but we are going to hang on to every single one as we get ready for the first pitch of 2026 when your Giants take on the New York Yankees. And another huge story, and I'm telling you, when I say huge, MLB.com did a story on this. Obviously, the local media outlets did a story on this. Carson Whisenhunt impressed everyone and continues to impress everyone. This is from Maria Guadardo, okay? Whisenhunt's velocity turning heads as lefty aims to prove himself. So she starts out. Carson Whisenhunt knew the ball was coming out of his hand well, so he couldn't help but glance up at the scoreboard to check his velocity during the Giants' simulated game at Scottsdale Stadium. Quote, I was like, I kind of want to see where I'm at, Whisenhunt said. I was not expected to see 97 miles per hour, people. It's time to get hype. And I'm not going to switch up now. I was not that high on Carson Whisenhunt last season. To be fair, I didn't have a huge reason to be. But it looks like he may have turned back the clock or unlocked something, okay? Maria goes on to write, Whisenhunt averaged 92.6 miles per hour on his four-seam fastball in the majors last year, but he turned heads by consistently hitting 96, 97 miles per hour while facing hitters on Thursday. I'm not the best at math, but that's a pretty darn big jump. The 25-year-old left-hander struck out 3 over 2 simulated innings, all with his signature changeup, and also showed off a new cutter/power slider that he's excited about. The Giants will need several young hurlers to take steps forward and raise the ceiling of the pitching staff this year. Whisenhunt certainly has the tools to be a prime breakout candidate, especially if he can sustain his uptick in velocity during the regular season. He says, I'm feeling a lot better than I did last year, who logged a 5.01 ERA. Over 5 starts for the Giants in 2025. I'm moving better, mechanics especially. Everything is just kind of flowing right now. I'm trying not to overdo it, but it came out hot today. Whisenhunt sat at 94 to 97 in the minors in 2023, But his progress stalled after he suffered a season-ending elbow injury in July of that season. He returned to the mound the following year, but he then dealt with a back strain that prevented him from reaching his top-end velocity in 2025. It kind of hindered me a little bit last year, Whisenhunt said. Going into the offseason, it was a main focus of like, hey, let's get back everything moving how it was and get back to normal. We'll see how everything progresses from there. I felt a lot better than I thought I was going to today, so I'm going to try to keep it that way. The Giants don't have any vacancies in their starting rotation right now, but Whisenhunt could put himself in the mix for a bullpen spot if he continues to impress this spring. Still, San Francisco could also prefer to keep him stretched out and have him waiting in the wings at AAA Sacramento to start the season. Whisenhunt wasn't the only Giants pitcher to light up the radar gun. Non-roster invitee Gregory Santos touched 100 miles per hour while retiring all 4 batters he faced on Thursday. Let's go. Let's go. This is what we're talking about here, people. All right. And Whisenhunt, based on what Gregory Santos just said, he said that was wild. Already throwing 100. Good for him. So outstanding stuff from Maria. And you have Gregory Santos popping up. And a lot of people had him on their radar, no pun intended. And he's throwing 100 miles per hour. A lot of things to be excited about. Now, the Carson Whisenhunt thing, I want to take a step back real quick because you never really know what somebody is going through. And the fact that the Giants still had him out there last season, he started in 3 games and threw a fair amount of innings. The Giants did feel like he was healthy, right? But there's a difference between being healthy and being back. Right? I tore my Achilles a couple years ago. I don't know who I thought I was, Steph Curry, and I'm healthy. But to this day, I don't necessarily know that I'm back. Now, it's not my job to get paid to, to run and to compete and to do athletic things. So it wasn't the top priority of mine. But there's a difference between being healthy and back. And only you know it as an athlete, right? And whether that's a pro athlete, whether that's just you at home playing catch with your kid, and you hurt your shoulder back in the day or a couple weeks ago, whatever level that is, or if you're in your local YMCA, whatever level it is, there's a difference between being healthy and back. We saw the same thing with Klay Thompson, with Kevin Durant. You could be healthy, but are you back? Do you feel like you're back? And it seems like to me, Carson Whisenhunt last season was healthy, but he wasn't necessarily back. And with these tweaks and being another year removed from his injury, it feels like he thinks that he is close to being back. And Carson Whisenhunt in 2023 is a lot different than Carson Whisenhunt in 2025. And if he can unlock that 2023 version of him, we'll see. It was just one start, but clearly, I mean, that's a huge difference. And if you're the Giants, you got to think they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. Look, we know this guy was throwing 96, 97. He's down 4 or 5 miles per hour, but he's healthy. Right? And he's still being somewhat effective. What do you do? So it's almost as if last season was another version of a rehab for Carson Whisenhunt, but a lot of people just didn't know it. And you're looking at what he's doing and he's being put in these situations and you're asking yourself, what do the Giants really see in this guy? Well, now we know. Now we know. And maybe you already knew and you were hoping that he could return to this. I know it's just a flash in the pan. We are going to overreact to spring training stuff all spring training. That's what it's about. So great on Carson Whisenhunt, starting to get things figured out, unleashing a new pitch. This is the type of stuff that Buster Posey was hoping for. Now, you got to do it against actual competition, and he'll have those opportunities. But a great start from Carson Whisenhunt because I didn't really talk about him too much. I really didn't. And the Giants, again, they're looking at this pitching staff, the young pitchers, thinking all we need is about 2 guys to take that leap, not even necessarily as starters, but even bullpen guys, right? 2 guys to take leaps as back-end starters or reliable bullpen guys, and we'll be in a great spot. So outstanding news coming out of Arizona for Carson Whisenhunt. One more segment with you. What do you want to see this spring? What do you want to see, and who do you want to see it from? More Locked On Giants coming up. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping for the right candidate that stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get $75 as sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. What do you want to see this spring? This is a question that I'm asking myself. This is a question that I'm asking you. This is a question that I'm asking everybody around me. What do you want to see from the San Francisco Giants this spring? Well, obviously wins and losses don't matter, but I do think how the wins and losses happen, they do kind of matter. And why would I say that if it was Bruce Bochy in that dugout? Would I say that if it was Bob Melvin in that dugout? Would I say that if it was Gabe Kapler in that dugout? Maybe the first year, but all those guys had managerial experience prior to coming in to the Giants. Tony Vitello doesn't have manager experience. He doesn't have any pro experience. So I want to see how Tony Vitello just behaves, how he acts, how he carries himself in a big league environment, because he has not been there before. That is one thing that I want to see this spring. I think things maybe got misconstrued with the whole media debacle. What was that? Late last week or early this week? I can't remember. And everybody knows that's been listening to this show that I've been a huge Tony Vitello guy. I think I'm a bit scared because when somebody leaves the environment that you are used to seeing them in and then goes into an environment that affects you, it can be a bit scary. You know, I used to watch Tennessee baseball. I have no connection to Tennessee, but I would root for them each and every year just because I like Tony Vitello. I love Drew Gilbert. I loved everything that they had going on, but I had no connection to them, right? It was almost my little secret college baseball fun that I was having. But now Tony Vitello is manager of my favorite baseball team, right? And a baseball team that I cover. That changes things a little bit. So I don't ever want it to get it twisted that I'm worried about Tony Vitello or I don't believe in Tony Vitello, because I do as much as I can, right? But I can't sit here and tell you that he's going to be Bruce Bochy, Dusty Baker, anybody like that, because he's never done it before. So I want to see how Tony Vitello acts in a major league environment. Does he look the part? Does he sound the part? Does he behave in that part? So that's one thing I definitely want to see when it comes to the players on the field. I mean, as far as the vets are concerned, there's not really much I can look at. The only vet that I guess is more of a hybrid would be Jung-Hoo Lee. Maybe I want to see how Jung-Hoo Lee looks in right field. And, you know, as far as the plate is concerned, I could say Jung-Hoo Lee in right field. How does Elliot Ramos look in left field? Does he look comfortable out there? So I would say those two things from the vets, but the, Harrison Bader and the infielders, not very much. I'm not terribly worried about Devers. And as far as Arias is concerned, kind of is what it is, right? You know, he's either going to boot balls or he's going to be good. I'm not really going to be paying a ton of attention. I don't know about the Giants because they've promised him second base. So I don't know how bad he'd have to perform in order for the Giants to say, actually, hey, we're not going to do that. So it's kind of a moot point to me to pay attention to Arias at second base. I mean, I'm paying attention to it, but I don't think anything is going to change unless he just looks putrid out there. And I don't actually think he's going to look bad enough for them to have to make that type of call. Either way, that's what was promised. They paid him that money. He will be second base to start the season. So I'm not going to be paying a ton of attention to that. Bryce Eldridge, of course, is a huge storyline. You know, what's he going to do as far as first base, how he looks out there? I don't know how often he'll actually be in the outfield and hitting, right? The whiff, the K rate, the whiff rate. Can you find a way to put the bat on the ball? Because when you put a bat on the ball, you put a hurting on the ball. And good things happen. We just need you to do that more often. So how does Bryce Eldridge look? Can he get a home run in spring? Can he get a home run in the spring? I would like to see that. I know he hit a couple doubles, but I'd like to see a home run in the spring because I do think it will help him loosen up a bit. Just go dead red, look for your pitch, and don't miss it, kid. Don't miss it. As far as the other young guys are concerned, I don't know, man. Referencing or referring back to what we talked about earlier in the week, I don't know what Luis Matos can do. I don't know what Grant McCray can do to kind of solidify a spot. Encarnacion is interesting, and Drew Gilbert is interesting, just because I think that the Giants don't feel as if they've seen as much from Drew Gilbert as they've seen from Grant McCray, just from the standpoint of literally, we haven't seen this dude enough to say whether or not, he's going to be a part of our future. I feel like they've seen enough Grant McCray. I don't know if that's fair or not. So those are the outfielders. And then, of course, the young guys, Bo Davidson, guys that we know, Parks Harbor, guys that we know aren't going to be up with the big league crew, but they could accelerate their timeline if they do have a good spring and then carry that in to their minor league season. So that's kind of a lay of the land. If I were to prioritize this, because I just can't say everything, my number one thing, I'm not going to say Tony Vitello because that's a cop-out. My number one thing that I want to see this spring is a Bryce Eldridge home run, maybe more than one. The first base situation, I think he'll figure that out. He's going to be splitting time with Devers anyway. I want to see Bryce Eldridge hit at least one home run, hopefully a couple. I don't want him to strike out every single time in the process, but I think it would really help him loosen up if we can get a Bryce Eldridge home run. That's the number one thing on my list. Number one, hop in the comments on YouTube, hit me up on social media. A couple of you have found me on Instagram at @the_South Files. So hit me up there as well, and we can kind of talk about what you're looking forward to, and I'll feature some of that on these shows as we get ready for spring training in the 2026 season, and we can go from there. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thank you for listening to Locked On Giants. Thank you for watching Locked On Giants. Be sure to follow me on social media at @the_Styles Files, Styles with an I. Also, our official Locked On Giants account on X and on TikTok as well. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Giants ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to LockedOnSFGiants.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On MLB. And again, use that code SPRING and you will get free Everydayer Club access for a month. But you got to do it soon, within the next week. We will talk to you tomorrow. Until then, peace.